Long before modern perfumes, medicines, or kitchens as we know them existed, there was a world where certain plants and resins were treated as gifts from the divine. They were burned in temples, carried in the hands of priests, rubbed into the skin of kings, and laid beside the bodies of the dead. These were not ordinary ingredients. They were bridges between the earthly and the sacred. The Bible mentions dozens of aromatic substances throughout its text, from the incense burned daily in Solomon's temple to the spices brought to anoint the body of Jesus. These plants and resins were woven into the spiritual, medicinal, and cultural fabric of the ancient world. Many of them were extraordinarily rare and more valuable than gold. Today, we're exploring 20 sacred spices and aromatic plants mentioned in the Bible and ancient holy rituals, what they were, where they came from, and why the ancient world treated them as sacred. And make sure you stay until number 18. When I was researching it, I was genuinely surprised by what I found. Its story is unlike anything else on this list. Before we begin, if you know someone who loves history, the Bible, or ancient cultures, share this video with them. These stories deserve to be heard. If you enjoy what you learned today, leave a like and let us know in the comments which of these sacred spices surprised you most. Now let's begin.
1. Frankincense, the sacred resin of temple incense.
Of all the aromatic substances in the ancient world, frankincense may carry the greatest spiritual weight. It was burned in the temple in Jerusalem every single day. It was one of the 3 gifts brought to the infant Jesus by the Magi. It was offered by pharaohs and priests across the ancient Near East in the presence of their gods. Frankincense comes from trees of the Boswellia genus, primarily Boswellia sacra and Boswellia carteri, which grow in the arid landscapes of Oman, Yemen, Somalia, and Ethiopia. Harvesting it requires cutting into the bark and allowing the white, milky resin to seep out and harden into small, teardrop-shaped beads. In the ancient world, this process was labor-intensive, and the trade routes that carried frankincense across thousands of miles were among the most important commercial corridors of the ancient Near East. In the Hebrew Bible, frankincense appears as a key ingredient in the Ketoret, the sacred incense formula prescribed in Exodus 30 for use exclusively in the tabernacle and later the temple in Jerusalem. The smoke rising from this incense was understood not as decoration, but as an act of communication with the divine, carrying prayers upward in visible form. The book of Leviticus describes frankincense being placed on grain offerings as an act of worship. Beyond its spiritual role, frankincense contains compounds including boswellic acids, which have been studied in modern research for their anti-inflammatory properties. When burned, it releases aromatic molecules including incensol acetate, which has been shown in laboratory studies to interact with ion channels in the brain involved in emotional regulation. Ancient peoples could not have known this chemistry, yet they intuited its effects. The air of a room filled with frankincense smoke feels different. It feels solemn, elevated, and still. Frankincense was traded along the ancient incense route from southern Arabia through the Levant to Egypt and beyond, a journey of thousands of miles. In Roman times, Emperor Nero was said to have burned an entire year's supply of frankincense at his wife's funeral. Its value was matched only by its reputation.
2. Myrrh, the holy spice of anointing and burial. Like frankincense, myrrh was one of the gifts carried by the Magi, and its presence in the Nativity story carries deep symbolism. Frankincense was associated with priestly intercession and prayer. Myrrh was associated with suffering, death, and burial, a foreshadowing, many theologians have noted, of the life that lay ahead for the child in the manger. Myrrh is a resin harvested from comifera trees, primarily Comifera myrrha, which grow in the semi-arid regions of Somalia, Ethiopia, and the Arabian Peninsula. Like frankincense, it is obtained by making cuts in the bark and collecting the hardened resin that weeps from the wounds. Its scent is warm, slightly bitter, and deeply resonant. Unlike the clean brightness of frankincense, myrrh carries a heavier, more earthy quality. In the Bible, myrrh appears throughout both the Old and New Testaments. It was a key ingredient in the holy anointing oil prescribed in Exodus 30, which was used to consecrate the tabernacle and its priests. In the Song of Solomon, it appears as a symbol of intimacy and beauty. In the New Testament, myrrh was offered to Jesus on the cross mixed with wine as a painkiller, and after his death,
Nicodemus brought a mixture of myrrh and aloe to prepare his body for burial. Medicinally, myrrh was one of the most respected substances in ancient medicine. Egyptian papyri record its use in treating wounds and infections. Greek physicians, including Hippocrates, described its use for healing sores and preserving the body. Modern research has confirmed that myrrh contains compounds with demonstrated antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory activity, supporting its ancient reputation as a healer of both flesh and spirit.
3. Cinnamon, the sweet spice of sacred oil. Cinnamon appears by name in the holy anointing oil formula given in Exodus 30, described in Hebrew as cinnamon. In the ancient world, this was no ordinary kitchen spice. The trade routes that brought cinnamon from its origins in Sri Lanka and South Asia to the markets of the ancient Near East were among the longest and most protected in the ancient world. Merchants guarded their supply routes jealously, and for centuries, the true source of cinnamon was kept deliberately obscure to maintain high prices. True cinnamon, Cinnamomum verum, produces its fragrant bark in the humid forests of Sri Lanka. The inner bark is harvested and dried, curling into the familiar quills that release their sweet, warming fragrance. In ancient Egypt, cinnamon was used in embalming rituals and is referenced in texts describing sacred preparations. In the Hebrew Bible, it appears not only in Exodus, but also in Proverbs and the Song of Solomon, where its fragrance is associated with beauty and desirability. The holy anointing oil in which cinnamon appeared was a carefully prescribed mixture used to consecrate the most sacred objects and persons of ancient Israelite worship. The proportions were specific, and the ingredients rare enough that producing the oil required deliberate effort and significant resources. Cinnamon's inclusion alongside myrrh, cassia, and calamus tells us something about how the ancient world valued aromatic intensity as part of spiritual experience. Physiologically, cinnamon's main aromatic compound, cinnamaldehyde, is known to warm the skin upon contact and carries a deeply familiar, comforting scent. It also possesses antimicrobial properties, adding a practical dimension to its sacred use.
4. Cassia, the strong aromatic used in holy anointing. Cassia is the fourth aromatic ingredient listed in the holy anointing oil formula of Exodus 30, appearing alongside myrrh, cinnamon, and calamus. While it is closely related to cinnamon and sometimes confused with it, cassia carries a bolder, more pungent character. The Hebrew word used in Exodus, kita, refers most likely to Cinnamomum cassia, a species native to southern China and Southeast Asia. Like cinnamon, cassia was extraordinarily valuable in the ancient world because of the vast distances it had to travel to reach the Near East. Egyptian records from as early as 1700 BCE mention imports of cassia-like aromatics, suggesting that long-distance spice trade predates much of recorded biblical history. The Ebers Papyrus, an ancient Egyptian medical document, lists cassia among medicinal preparations, and Herodotus in the 5th century BCE described the Arab merchants who collected cassia guarding their supply routes with great secrecy. In the context of the holy anointing oil, cassia's inclusion as a distinct ingredient from cinnamon suggests that the ancient Israelites recognized the aromatic difference between the two related but distinct spices. Both contributed to the blend's complexity. Cinnamon brought sweetness, cassia brought warmth and depth. Together with myrrh and calamus, they formed an aromatic profile that was unmistakably sacred. Cassia bark contains compounds similar to cinnamon, including cinnamaldehyde, which gives it warming, antimicrobial properties. Its bolder aromatic intensity made it distinct even to ancient senses trained to notice gradations of fragrance.
5. Calamus, the sacred root of anointing oil.
The third aromatic ingredient in the Exodus 30 anointing oil formula, calamus, appears in Hebrew as kanye bosim, literally fragrant cane or sweet cane. Its identity has been debated by scholars for centuries, but most modern references connect it to sweet flag, Acorus calamus, an aquatic plant whose root produces a warm, spicy, slightly earthy fragrance when dried or crushed. Calamus appears in other parts of the Hebrew Bible as well, including Ezekiel 27, which lists it among luxury trade goods brought to the great port city of Tyre, and in the Song of Solomon, where it is mentioned alongside cinnamon and other prized aromatics as symbolic of beauty and desire. The Talmud describes calamus as one of the ingredients brought by caravans from distant regions, indicating that it was imported rather than locally grown in ancient Israel. What makes calamus distinctive in the anointing oil formula is its specific role in contributing a green, earthy depth to an otherwise resin-heavy blend. The combination of myrrh's dark bitterness, cinnamon's sweetness, cash's bold warmth, and calamus's herbal freshness created an anointing oil with a complexity that could not be replicated with fewer ingredients. Ancient Egyptian, Greek, and Roman perfumers also prized calamus root, using it in fragrance blends and medicinal preparations. Its aromatic compounds include acerone and related phenylpropanoids, which contribute to its characteristic scent profile.
6. Galbanum, the bitter resin used in holy incense. While frankincense might be the most celebrated ingredient in ancient temple incense, galbanum was equally sacred by prescription. Exodus 30 names galbanum alongside stacte, onycha, and frankincense as the 4 components of the ketoret, the sacred incense burned daily on the golden altar inside the tabernacle and later the Jerusalem temple. According to the Talmud, the galbanum was included precisely because of its unpleasant smell. Its inclusion taught that even the most imperfect or bitter elements have a place in sacred community. Galbanum is a gum resin obtained from plants of the Ferula genus, particularly Ferula galbaniflua, which grows in the mountainous regions of Iran and neighboring areas. When fresh, the resin has a harsh, intensely green, and slightly sulfurous aroma that many find overwhelming on its own. Yet when blended with other aromatics and burned, it behaves as what perfumers call a fixative. It anchors other scents, extends their duration, and adds a green, woody depth that balances the sweetness and warmth of other ingredients. The Talmud discussion of galbanum's role in the ketoret is one of the most theologically interesting passages connected to the sacred incense. Its message is that the community of prayer must include all members, even those who are struggling or fallen. A prayer community that excludes sinners is incomplete, just as temple incense without galbanum would be incomplete. Chemically, galbanum resin contains pinene, limonene, and other terpene compounds, as well as sulfur-containing molecules responsible for its distinctive and challenging raw scent.
7. Onycha, the mysterious incense ingredient.
Of all the ingredients in the biblical incense formula, onycha is perhaps the most mysterious. It appears alongside stacte, galbanum, and frankincense in the ketoret prescription of Exodus 30, but its precise identity remained debated for centuries. The Hebrew word shekelet has been interpreted in different ways across different traditions. The most widely accepted scholarly interpretation, consistent with ancient Talmudic sources and later Greek translations, is that onycha refers to the operculum, the small shell-like covering of a sea snail called strombus or murex. When burned, this dried membrane releases a strong, animal-like musky and slightly fishy odor that functions similarly to galbanum as a fixative in the incense blend, anchoring volatile aromatic compounds and extending their life in smoke. This interpretation is supported by the word onycha itself, which in Greek means nail or claw, consistent with the shell-like appearance of the operculum. Medieval Jewish commentators, including Maimonides, confirmed that the ingredient came from a marine creature. The Talmudic tractate Kritot describes detailed procedures for treating the onycha before use in the sacred incense, including soaking it in a specific liquid to soften its odor. From an aromatic science perspective, animal-derived fixatives such as musk, ambergris, and civet have been used in perfumery for thousands of years precisely because their molecular structure allows them to slow the evaporation of lighter aromatic compounds, creating complex, long-lasting fragrance profiles. Onycha's role in the ketoret was likely to perform exactly this function, holding the entire sacred blend together. 8. Saffron, the rare fragrant spice. Saffron appears in the Song of Solomon alongside other prized aromatics, calamus, cinnamon, myrrh, and frankincense, as part of a description of an impossibly beautiful garden. In the ancient world, saffron was among the most precious substances that could be named. To include it in a list of beautiful things was to invoke luxury, rarity, and the highest possible value. Saffron comes from the stigmas of the Crocus sativus flower, a cultivated crocus that produces only 3 thread-like stigmas per bloom. Each must be harvested by hand during a narrow window in autumn. Producing a single pound of dried saffron requires the harvesting of more than 70,000 flowers. In antiquity, this made saffron more expensive by weight than many precious metals, and it was accordingly used in royal courts, temples, and the most elite perfumes and medicines of the ancient world. Ancient records of saffron extend well beyond the Bible. Minoan frescoes from around 1600 BCE depict its harvest in vivid detail. Egyptian medical papyri list it as a medicinal ingredient. Persian royal courts used it to dye royal robes and perfume ritual spaces. Alexander the Great reportedly bathed in saffron-infused water, believing it would heal his wounds and restore energy. The primary aromatic compound in saffron, safranel, produces its distinctive warm, slightly hay-like, intensely fragrant scent. Saffron also contains crocin, responsible for its vivid golden-orange color, and picrocrocin, which gives it a subtle bitter edge. These compounds interact to create a scent profile that is immediately recognizable and virtually impossible to imitate synthetically.
9. Spikenard. Nard, the costly perfume spice.
Few moments in the New Testament are more emotionally charged than the anointing of Jesus with spikenard. The Gospel of John describes Mary, the sister of Lazarus, taking a pound of pure nard, an extremely costly perfume, and anointing the feet of Jesus, filling the entire house with its fragrance. When Judas objected that the perfume could have been sold for 300 denarii and the money given to the poor, Jesus responded that what she had done was an act of preparation for his burial. Spikenard, also known simply as nard, comes from Nardostachys jatamansi, a flowering plant of the honeysuckle family that grows in the Himalayan regions of Nepal, China, and India, at elevations above 3,000 meters. The aromatic oil is extracted from the plant's rhizome, its underground root structure, through a labor-intensive process that, combined with the extraordinary distances it had to travel to reach the ancient Near East, made it one of the most expensive perfumed substances in the Roman-era world. The Gospel of Mark specifies that the nard used at the anointing was genuine, a distinction that suggests the ancient market included adulterated nard sold at lower prices, much as saffron or cinnamon might be cut with inferior substitutes. The word pistike, used in the Greek text, is often translated as pure or unadulterated. The scent of spikenard is earthy, woody, sweet, and slightly musky, complex and deep in a way that ancient accounts describe as almost overwhelming. Its aromatic compounds include jatamansone and other sesquiterpenes. In Ayurvedic medicine, spikenard root has been used for centuries as a calming agent, and modern research has explored its compounds for their effects on the central nervous system.
The phrase "balm of Gilead" has passed into the English language as a symbol of spiritual comfort and healing. It appears multiple times in the Hebrew Bible. Jeremiah asks in his lament whether there is no balm in Gilead, using it as a metaphor for spiritual healing. Genesis describes a caravan of Ishmaelites carrying balm from Gilead down to Egypt, among other traded goods, suggesting it was one of the most recognized trade commodities of the ancient Near East. The actual substance referred to is believed to be a resin produced by Commiphora gileadensis, a small thorny tree historically cultivated in the Gilead region east of the Jordan River and in parts of Arabia. Ancient sources, including the Roman-era writer Josephus and the geographer Strabo, describe a prized balsam cultivated in the gardens of Jericho and the En-Gedi oasis near the Dead Sea, obtained through careful incisions in the tree's bark. This balsam, also known as Judean balsam or balm of Mecca, was prized across the ancient world for its medicinal properties. Roman historians record that Julius Caesar considered the Judean balsam groves among the most valuable assets acquired during Rome's expansion into the Near East. In the Jewish-Roman War of the 1st century CE, retreating Jews reportedly destroyed the balsam groves to prevent them falling into Roman hands, and advancing Roman soldiers fought to protect them. The resin contains aromatic compounds with documented antiseptic, wound healing, and anti-inflammatory properties, consistent with its ancient reputation as a healer. The metaphorical weight it carries in biblical literature reflects the real and tangible value it held in the physical world.
The leaven cumin, the earthy seed spice. The prophet Isaiah uses cumin to illustrate a lesson about careful attention to the right method.
In Isaiah 28, God is described as one who does not thresh cumin with a heavy sledge, but beats it gently with a rod, each crop requiring the tool appropriate to its delicate nature. This agricultural image would have been immediately recognizable to an ancient audience, for whom cumin was a daily kitchen staple and a tithed agricultural product. Cumin, Cuminium ciminum, is an annual herbaceous plant native to the Mediterranean and the western part of South Asia. Its small, ridged seeds carry a warm, earthy, slightly bitter aroma produced by aromatic compounds including cuminaldehyde. In the ancient Near East, cumin was cultivated widely and appears in agricultural and culinary records from Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Levant, stretching back several thousand years. In the New Testament, cumin appears in a striking moment of criticism. In Matthew 23, Jesus rebukes the Pharisees for carefully tithing even the smallest seeds, mint, anise, and cumin, while neglecting what he calls the weightier matters of justice, mercy, and faithfulness. The detail is important. It shows that even tiny seeds like cumin were subject to the biblical tithe, reflecting how carefully the agricultural law accounted for every crop. Cumin seeds were not only culinary and economic goods, but also medicinal. Ancient Egyptian medical texts describe their use in treating digestive complaints, and Greek physicians, including Dioscorides, cataloged their properties extensively.
Coriander is one of the oldest cultivated spice plants in the world, with seeds found in archaeological excavations at sites in the Near East dating back more than 8,000 years. In the Bible, it appears in a remarkably specific context. When the Israelites first encountered manna in the wilderness, the Bible describes its appearance as resembling coriander seed, small, round, and pale. This detail grounds one of the Bible's most miraculous narratives in the sensory experience of an ancient audience, for whom coriander seeds were a familiar sight. Coriander, Coriandrum sativum, produces seeds with a warm, citrusy, slightly spicy aroma arising from aromatic compounds including linalool and pinene. The plant is native to the Mediterranean and Western Asia and was cultivated in ancient Egypt. Coriander seeds have been found in Egyptian tomb excavations, including the tomb of Tutankhamun. The Ebers Papyrus references coriander in medicinal recipes, and Pliny the Elder in the 1st century CE described its culinary and medical uses extensively. The Hebrew word for coriander, God, appears in both Exodus and Numbers in describing manna. This botanical comparison offers a rare glimpse into the lived world of the Israelites in the Sinai, a world in which coriander was familiar enough to serve as an instant point of reference for something previously unseen and entirely miraculous.
13. Mustard seed, the tiny seed of faith. No plant on this list is more famous for its smallness. In Matthew 13, Jesus compares the kingdom of heaven to a mustard seed, the smallest of all seeds, he says. Yet when fully grown, it becomes a tree large enough for birds to nest in its branches. The parable is among the most recognized in the entire New Testament, and its power rests on a botanical reality well understood by Jesus' agricultural audience. The mustard seed referred to is most likely Sinapis alba, or Brassica nigra, the black mustard plant common throughout the Galilee region where Jesus taught. Black mustard seeds are tiny, measuring roughly 1 to 2 millimeters in diameter, yet the plant itself can grow to heights of 3 meters or more in favorable conditions, making the contrast Jesus described both botanically accurate and visually dramatic. The mustard plant was grown throughout the ancient Near East and Mediterranean world, both for its seeds, which were ground into condiment and medicine, and for its leaves, which were consumed as a vegetable. Its seeds contain glucosinolates, compounds that break down to produce the characteristic sharp, pungent bite of mustard. Ancient physicians used mustard preparations as poultices and treatments for joint pain and respiratory conditions. The parable's enduring resonance lies in its precision. Jesus was not inventing a metaphor. He was pointing to a real plant, a real seed, and a real transformation that anyone who had walked through the Galilean hillsides would have witnessed with their own eyes.
14. Dill, the delicate aromatic seed. Alongside mint and cumin, dill appears in Matthew 23 in Jesus' criticism of those who meticulously tithe the smallest garden herbs while overlooking larger ethical obligations. The mention of dill in this context is notable because it confirms how seriously the agricultural tithe was taken in 1st century Judea. Even a feathery, delicate herb was measured and offered. Dill, Anethum graveolens, is an annual herb native to the eastern Mediterranean and Western Asia. Its feathery leaves and yellow flower clusters produce aromatic seeds and foliage containing compounds including carvone and limonene, which give dill its distinctive, fresh, slightly anise-like scent. The plant has been cultivated for both culinary and medicinal purposes since ancient Egypt, where it was documented in medical papyri as a treatment for digestive complaints and headaches. In ancient and medieval European tradition, dill was believed to carry protective properties and was used in household preparations intended to guard against misfortune, though these traditions lie beyond the biblical text itself. Within the biblical record, dill's significance is primarily as an agricultural product, humble, common, and yet accountable. The detail of dill being tithed is consistent with what we know about the halakhic interpretation of Deuteronomy's tithe laws, which extended obligations to virtually all cultivated plants. That Jesus named dill specifically suggests it was genuinely being tithed in his time, and that his listeners would have recognized the example immediately.
Fennel, the sweet ancient spice. Fennel does not appear by name in most English translations of the canonical Bible, but its presence in the ancient world surrounding biblical culture was pervasive, and it appears in some textual traditions and deuterocanonical texts. It is also closely related to several plants whose seeds were common in the same culinary and medicinal contexts as dill and cumin. Fennel, Fueniculum vulgare, is native to the Mediterranean basin and has been cultivated since antiquity for its aromatic seeds, bulb, and feathery leaves. Fennel seeds contain anethole as their primary aromatic compound, producing the distinctive sweet, licorice-like fragrance strongly associated with Mediterranean cuisine and traditional medicine. The plant was well known to ancient Greeks and Romans. According to Greek mythology, fire was carried from the gods to humanity inside a hollow fennel stalk. Roman soldiers ate fennel to maintain weight and fitness during campaigns, and Pliny the Elder listed more than 20 medicinal uses for the plant. Ancient Hebrew and Aramaic agricultural vocabulary included terms for fennel and related plants, and first-century Jewish agricultural practice recognized fennel as a cultivated plant subject to tithes and sabbatical year regulations. In the broader context of biblical botany, fennel represents the rich aromatic tradition of Mediterranean cultivation from which many of the Bible's botanical references emerge. The sweet fragrance of fennel seeds, easily distinguished from the earthier profiles of cumin and coriander, was appreciated in ancient cooking and medicine alike, making it a natural presence in the same agricultural world that produced the more famous biblical spices.
16. Hyssop, the purification herb. Few plants in the Bible carry as clear a ritual function as hyssop. It appears in some of the most dramatically charged moments of the biblical narrative. In Exodus 12, Moses commands the Israelites to use a bunch of hyssop to apply the blood of the Passover lamb to their doorposts, the sign that would cause the angel of death to pass over their homes. In Leviticus and Numbers, hyssop bunches are used in purification rituals for those who have been ritually defiled through contact with a corpse or illness. In Psalm 51, the author, traditionally David, pleads, "Purge me with hyssop, and I shall be clean." In the New Testament, hyssop appears at the crucifixion. A sponge soaked in sour wine was raised to the lips of Jesus on a stalk of hyssop. The plant most widely identified with biblical hyssop is Oreganum syriacum, also known as Syrian oregano or Bible hyssop, a low-growing aromatic herb common throughout the Levant, whose bushy branches are well suited for use as a sprinkler or brush in ritual application. Its aromatic compounds include carvacrol and thymol, the same compounds found in oregano and thyme, known for their antimicrobial properties. The convergence of hyssop's practical antimicrobial qualities with its consistent ritual use in purification rites is striking. Long before the concept of germ theory existed, ancient Israelite practice was employing an herb with genuine sanitizing properties in exactly the contexts: contact with the dead, treatment of skin disease, where antiseptic action would have been most beneficial. 17. Mint, the tithe herb of the Bible. Mint appears in the same passage as dill and cumin in Matthew 23, and in a parallel passage in Luke 11. In both, Jesus names it as one of the small garden herbs that the Pharisees scrupulously tithe while neglecting justice and love. As with dill and cumin, the detail confirms that mint was cultivated as an agricultural product in 1st century Judea and was precise enough in its measurement to be subject to religious law. The mint referred to in the biblical text is likely Mentha longifolia, the wild horse mint common throughout the Levant, or one of the related cultivated species grown in kitchen gardens across the ancient Near East. The plant produces menthol and related compounds that give mint its characteristic cooling, refreshing sensation and crisp, clean aroma. Mint has been found in Egyptian tombs dating to as early as the 14th century BCE, suggesting its cultivation and value predates the New Testament period by more than a millennium. Greek and Roman physicians documented numerous medical uses for mint, including treatment of digestive disorders, headache, and fever. In Talmudic literature, mint is discussed in the context of Sabbath regulations and tithe obligations, confirming that the plant was indeed subject to the agricultural laws Jesus referenced. That such a familiar, even humble plant was part of the tithing system reflects the comprehensive nature of the biblical agricultural law. Every cultivated plant mattered.
18. Aloe wood, the fragrant burial spice. When Nicodemus came to prepare the body of Jesus for burial, he brought a mixture of myrrh and aloes weighing about 100 pounds. This was not aloe vera gel as we know it today. The aloes referenced in the New Testament and in the Old Testament Song of Solomon, which calls aloe wood the most prized fragrance in the spice garden, are almost certainly aquilaria, the source of one of the most extraordinary aromatic substances in human history. Aloe wood, agar wood, or oud, all names for the same substance, is produced when trees of the Aquilaria genus become infected with a specific mold. In response to the infection, the tree saturates its heartwood with an extraordinarily complex dark resin. The wood that results, dense, dark, and soaked in aromatic compounds, is among the most expensive natural materials in the world, with high-grade oud selling today for more than $20,000 per kilogram. In the ancient world, aloe wood was imported from Southeast Asia and South Asia through Arabia along the same trade networks that carried frankincense and myrrh. It was burned as incense in royal courts and temples from China to Egypt. In ancient Arabian and South Asian traditions, aloe wood incense was used at every major religious and ceremonial occasion. Persian and Arabic poetry from the early medieval period repeatedly cites oud as the finest of all fragrant materials. The use of 100 pounds of myrrh and aloes in the burial of Jesus, as described in the Gospel of John, is explicitly described by that Gospel's author as a royal burial, a dignitary's treatment. The quantity was extraordinary and intentional. This is the plant that stopped me when I was researching this list, because what Nicodemus brought was not herbs from a garden. It was an astronomically expensive aromatic substance from the other side of the known world, used in a burial that the Gospel presents as the most significant in history.
19. Costus root, the ancient perfume spice. Costus appears in the Talmud as one of the 11 ingredients in the sacred Ketoret incense of the Jerusalem temple, listed alongside the 4 ingredients named in Exodus. The Talmudic tractate Yoma provides detailed descriptions of all 11 incense ingredients, and costus, Hebrew kosht, is among the most exotic, valued precisely because of the immense distances it traveled to reach Jerusalem. Costus root comes from Sausuria costus, also known as Sausuria lapa, a thistle-like plant native to the Kashmir region of the Himalayas and parts of northern India. Its root produces a deep, earthy, woody, and slightly animal-like fragrance that functions as a fixative in complex incense blends, much as galbanum and onycha do. In Indian Ayurvedic tradition, costus root has been used for thousands of years as a medicine and aromatic. Ancient trade in costus is documented extensively. The Roman writer Pliny the Elder describes it among the luxury goods carried from the east via Arabian trade routes. The Periplus of the Erythraean Sea, a 1st century CE navigation manual, lists costus as one of the goods traded at Indian ports with Arabian and Roman merchants. The inclusion of costus in the Jerusalem temple incense reflects the remarkable reach of the ancient spice trade. The priests who prepared the sacred incense each morning were blending ingredients that had traveled from the Himalayas, the Persian Gulf, the coasts of Somalia, and the mountains of Iran, a fragrant geography of the entire ancient world compressed into a single sacred preparation.
Cardamom is among the oldest spice trade commodities in recorded history. Ancient Babylonian and Assyrian records reference aromatic plants consistent with cardamom being cultivated in the royal garden of King Merodach Baladan II of Babylon. and Babylonian texts from the 2nd millennium BCE describe spice imports from India that likely included cardamom. In the wider ancient Near Eastern world, cardamom was a luxury ingredient associated with royal households and the highest levels of perfumed preparation. Cardamom, primarily Elateria cardamomum, is native to the moist forests of southern India and Sri Lanka. Its seed pods contain aromatic seeds rich in cineol, terpenine, and linalool, compounds that produce cardamom's distinctive warm, slightly floral, intensely complex fragrance. In ancient Arab and Persian tradition, cardamom was added to coffee as a mark of hospitality and wealth, a tradition that persists across the Middle East today. In the ancient world, cardamom was traded alongside pepper, ginger, and cinnamon along the Indian Ocean spice routes that connected southern India to Arabia and the wider Mediterranean. Theophrastus, the Greek botanist writing in the 4th century BCE, described cardamom among the most valuable aromatic imports. The Roman spice trade brought cardamom into widespread use across the empire. While cardamom does not appear by a clear modern name in canonical biblical texts, it is among the aromatic substances consistent with the unnamed luxury spices referenced in descriptions of Solomon's trading expeditions to Ophir and in the Song of Solomon's catalog of precious aromatics. In the context of the ancient spice world from which the Bible emerges, cardamom was woven into the same culture of aromatic luxury that produced all the sacred spices on this list.
Today, we walk through 20 sacred spices mentioned in the Bible and the ancient holy ritual surrounding it, from the daily incense of the Jerusalem temple to the anointing oil carried by Moses, the perfume that filled a room in Bethany, and the burial spices carried to the tomb. When you look at these plants together, a remarkable picture emerges. Many of them traveled thousands of miles to reach the ancient Near East: frankincense from Arabia, myrrh from Somalia, cinnamon from Sri Lanka, spikenard for the Himalayas, costus from Kashmir. The sacred spaces of the ancient world were perfumed with the aromatic products of almost the entire known globe. The rituals that used them were not incidental. They were deliberate, prescribed, and deeply meaningful acts that connected the physical senses to spiritual intention. These plants were not chosen randomly. Their aromatic compounds interacted with the human nervous system, influencing emotion, memory, and the sense of the sacred. Their rarity made them valuable, their fragrance made them extraordinary, and the care with which ancient texts describe their use tells us that the people who burned, applied, and traded them understood they were handling something irreplaceable. If this video opened a door into the ancient world for you, share it with a friend or family member who loves history, the Bible, or the story of how the ancient world worked. Leave a like if you learned something new, and tell us in the comments, which of these sacred spices surprised you most? Which one will you look at differently from now on? Thank you for spending this time here. The ancient world lives in these plants, in their fragrance, their history, and the meaning they carried across thousands of years.